it's a tough way to end the season, but I think this group of Eagles went out there and they battled with everything they have.
And now it's off to the postseason with many changes will be expected.
And yes, it is official. The Eagles hiring Nick Sirianni, 39 years old. He is the new Eagles head coach.
You know, first of all, the draft process has been great between the scouts, the coaches. It's really a total group effort.
We're an extension of the coaching staff, ultimately the scouts. And I think when you have alignment between that, great things are possible.
We spent the last few months with this new coaching staff. We know we have a lot of work to do. We climbed the mountain once. Our goal is to climb it again. I do feel like we have the people in place to do the right things again and get to the top.
And I think it goes back to the values that the organization has already had. And just building on that, building the culture that we want, and coming out and winning football games.
These Eagles, they just don't quit.
The pick is in. The commissioner will be heading to the podium with it.
As we transition to 2021, we need great players and great people. This process this year with the coaches, with the scouts, has allowed us to figure out the best way to maximize our 11 picks in this draft.
The Philadelphia Eagles select.
Flexibility creates opportunity.
And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do, is get the player right for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Cleveland, Ohio, the site of this year's NFL Draft in person. You'll love to see it. And with every draft pick and opportunity to add talent, the Eagles have a ton of it, with 11 picks over the next 3 days. As it stands right now, the most in the NFL. And it all begins tonight. That sweet opening video from our team at Eagles Entertainment, and there's plenty more where that came from. The NFL Draft is here, and so are we in person in Philadelphia. So pumped to have you with us here on Eagles Draft Central, presented by Dietz Watson. I'm Amy Campbell, joined by Fran Duffy and Ross Tucker to my left in person. You guys, this is an exciting day as it is, but we are in the same room together, and it's been such a long time. I'm so pumped.
This isn't my basement. This is it's such culture shock to be here. I'm so excited for this show. I've been looking forward to it for a long time. Excited to bring more to all of our Eagles fans at home.
And Ross, your first time with us in person, too.
Yeah, but listen, this is Fran's favorite day of the year every year, no matter where it is, no matter what we're doing. But this is amazing. I mean, we're in the bubble. I got the Britney Spears mic. Like, I'm feeling legit cool right now and ready to talk Eagles football.
All of us are pretending that we're Britney Spears here in the bubble, of course. And, man, our team has put together an amazing set, an amazing show. And we know today is a really big day, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. We will be here for all 3 days of the draft, bringing you Eagles draft analysis, exclusive interviews, and content that you won't get anywhere else. So here's how it's going to go for the next 3 days. Each day, we will get you started with our pre-draft show, Friday and Saturday, 30 minutes before the draft begins tonight. And tonight, of course, and tomorrow, we will be live immediately following each Eagles pick right here to break it all down and help you get to know each new player. Saturday, the Eagles have a lot of picks, so we will be live after each round to recap and analyze. We'll also have live press conferences of GM Howie Roseman, head coach Nick Sirianni, VP of Player Personnel Andy Weidel throughout the draft weekend. All of that, of course, exclusively on our website, app, and social media channels. So that's a schedule. A ton of content coming your way. We hope that you are getting comfortable for an exciting 3 days. So now we know where we're headed over the next few days, but there have been a lot of changes in Philly this offseason, starting, of course, with a new head coach. So let's take a quick look back on how we got to this point. 4 months into 2021, and it has been an action-packed offseason in Philadelphia, starting with a new head coach. And to say Nick Sirianni is excited about joining the Eagles, that is an understatement. The Eagles quickly went to work this offseason, locking in some of the key veterans, signing Jason Kelce and Brandon Graham. Now, things really got going mid-March. The offseason rebuild continued as the Eagles acquired a 2021 third-round pick and 2022 conditional first in exchange for Carson Wentz. They also signed safety Andrew Adams from the Buccaneers and locked in promising young tackle Hassan Ridgeway. Continuing to add talent in free agency, Philly signed safety Andrew Adams from Minnesota, Anthony Harris from Minnesota, and added veteran QB Joe Flacco to the fold, keeping the team's leading tackler from last season in Alex Singleton, also a big win for the defense. Then March 26th, the big move that made the headlines, the Eagles trading down from pick number 6 in the draft, swapping with the Dolphins for pick number 12, adding a 4th-round pick this year and a 1st-rounder next year, and keeping key talent in the fold, of course, also a priority for the Eagles as they locked in 2 young contributors in Greg Ward and Boston Scott, and finally adding a new face in veteran linebacker Eric Wilson from Minnesota and a familiar face in running back Jordan Howard. So, Ross, that was a lot of information for all of us. Hopefully the fans are hanging with us. But what do you think about what the Eagles have done so far in free agency?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where you want me to start. That was a lot. It's hard to believe, frankly, that here we are, and a year ago there's a new quarterback, there's a new head coach, but that is where the Eagles are. The move that jumps out to me is obviously getting the 1st-round pick next year for the Miami Dolphins. I mean, that is an absolute home run to only move down 6 spots and get a 1st-round pick next year. Depending on Wentz's playing time in Indy, they might have 3 1st-round picks next year. Everyone you talk to is talking about how valuable picks in 2022 will be. Seems like the Birds were ahead of the curve on that one.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit later in the show why next year's draft will be seen as maybe more valuable than some of the picks that you're going to get this year. But even getting guys like Anthony Harris and Eric Wilson, getting those guys into the fold, that's big as well, just to bring guys along with the new defensive scheme and offensive scheme.
Well, and so much newness, right? Obviously, it's a different year in terms of the coaching staff here. There's new players, but also, look, we talked about it. We're not in our basements. We're here. Our preparation has been different for this draft, but so has the NFL scouts and coaches' preparation. There was no combine this year. There was a Senior Bowl, of course, but also plenty of players didn't even play in 2020. How different was this year in terms of the preparation? How did it affect the scouts and coaches this year?
Yeah, such a big part of the player evaluation process when trying to stack the board and get a feel for these players as prospects is getting that one-on-one time, that face-to-face time. And when you talk about scouts not being on campus, scouts not being able to go to the combine, not being able to meet private workouts, no top 30 visits, that's a lot of face-to-face time that these players and these teams did not have this year. And so it's a very unique look into how teams are going to go about building their rosters here this year. It's going to be a lot different than normal. It's certainly going to put stress on all 32 teams.
Yeah, Fran, I think you make a really good point because last year the draft was weird because all the head coaches and GMs were at their houses with their families. But the process to that point was normal.
Yep.
This year, it's been totally different because they weren't able to go see these kids play in person, weren't able to talk to them, and then you've got all the guys opting out. So how do you judge them? Then FCS football didn't even play, so you're judging guys by how they played, 16 months ago. It's a really, really unique situation that hopefully will never be in again.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot more mystery, a lot more unknown, a lot more risk as well. It's going to be interesting as we look back on this over the next few years to see how that all unfolds. So, of course, the opportunities for evaluation may have been limited this year, but the Eagles staff made the most of those opportunities. Here's Eagles VP of Player Personnel, Andy Weidel, on how they approach the process.
Well, there were 10 of us that went down to the Senior Bowl this year. We did have the Senior Bowl. We got a lot of work done there. Typical years, we interview 15 to 16 guys. This year, we interviewed every player down there. So that was about 128 interviews, and we got to know those players, and we got a feel for them. And then we brought that information home. We relayed it to Howie and Nick, and we had Zoom interviews, follow-ups, and it was their chance to get to know them after we had the initial experience down in Mobile. So we're building with that. It's a challenge every team has to face, but there's no doubt we have the people here that are up to it, and we're excited for next week.
Well, you know what else you can do on Zoom is play rock, paper, scissors, just fine. So, of course, Fran, typically the Senior Bowl is one piece of the evaluation process. Did it carry more weight this year?
Yeah, I think it did. And I think really it really was the only opportunity that teams had to be able to have some face-to-face time with these prospects. So that's why the Eagles put more importance on getting that many interviews, because you didn't have the combine, you didn't have those top 30 visits, all of those opportunities. So certainly the guys that were down there, they're going to have a little bit of an advantage going into this weekend.
Let's talk about, of course, the big news, the trade down, the Eagles moving from the 6th pick to the 12th pick and acquiring some assets there. Howie Roseman, when he met with the media, he said, when we looked at it, there were at least 12 guys that we felt really good about at that, and were able to gain some assets there, especially in a year like this. What did you think of the move, Fran?
Yeah, I think ultimately it comes down to, number one, exactly what Ross brought up earlier, and that's you get that future pick, but then also it really kind of opens the board up, and you could still get an elite player at number 12 overall. Just look over the last decade at some of the top players. You look some of the bright young stars in the NFL right now. And even if you go back a little bit further, guys like Sean Merriman, Beast Mode, Marshawn Lynch, Jonathan Vilma, Haloti Ngata, all of those guys were 12th overall picks. So you can look at that list there over the last decade, but it goes even further than that. I think when you're looking at the 12th overall pick, you're right in the meat of the first round. You are very, very likely to get a great player. And obviously, Eagles fans are very familiar of one of those names on that list as well.
Woo.
That's what I was going to say. Out of all those guys, that's the guy that jumps out to me, Fletcher Cox. I think arguably the Eagles' best defensive player over the last decade. You can trade down to 12 and still get an absolutely dominant player, which is exactly what Fletcher's been. And watch some of these highlights, and that's an NFL lineman right there. He just throws him out of the way. He has been such a stalwart, really both on and off the field. They don't win the Super Bowl. They don't go to the playoff berths in recent years if it's not for Fletcher Cox pushing the pocket like he's done for so long. Obviously, I think every Eagles fan watching right now would be absolutely thrilled if the Eagles could get a player even close to Fletcher's caliber here at number 12, but that's what they did the last time. They got Fletcher Cox. Hopefully 12 is a lucky number for the Eagles.
Love that. I love that. And, of course, love seeing those highlights and that patented crawl after a big Fletcher Cox play. Just gets me fired up. All right, so, of course, as it stands right now, and I will be shocked if this doesn't change as the weekend unfolds, the Eagles have 11 picks in this draft. Here is the breakdown of those. 4 of those coming in the first 2 days. Guys, a lot of opportunity. That's really the key word when I look at this draft.
Yeah, I think ultimately when you look at all 11 of these picks, it just gives the Eagles the ability to move up and down. I would say it's very, very unlikely that they make all 11 of these selections in those 11 slots, right? They might walk away with 11 picks, but they're not going to look exactly like that when the weekend's done.
Well, and I think there's a chance they don't even make 11 picks, and they might end up trading some of these picks to get 2022 picks. And I referenced it earlier. I'll say it again. Most of the people you talk to feel like 2022 will be more valuable because they'll have a lot more information on the various kids that are in the draft. Plus, a lot of guys took advantage of that extra year of eligibility. There's only like 600 guys that even signed with agents as opposed to close to 1,800 in other years. So I think the Eagles will move around, but I wouldn't be surprised if they pick up even more 2022 picks than they already have.
Well, and already off to a big start for next year as well. And we'll all be staying on our toes, so we recommend that you do as well. So we know the Eagles currently have the 12th pick, but anyone who's been paying attention would not be surprised if they trade up or trade down. We know Howie Roseman works those phones, especially during this time of the year. Earlier this week, the Eagles GM caught up with Eagles insider Dave Spadaro for a bit more on the possibility of trading out of that number 12 pick.
It's all going to be dictated by what goes on in front of us. And so if we see a guy that's in front of us that has value more than the draft slot, well, let's talk about going up and getting him. If we go there and we say, hey, there's a bunch of players that we really like and we can pick up more opportunities and more flexibility, then let's move back and let's do that, and those are the conversations that we have.
And with that, it's time to welcome in another member of our team, Eagles insider Dave Spadaro, who will be joining us throughout the weekend with exclusive interviews and insight into the Eagles draft room. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Amy. I'm excited to be back at the NovaCare Complex. Good to see all you guys, and let's get this party started. I got to tell you, I'm sitting here going, I don't really have any idea what the Eagles are going to do tonight.
Nope, total mystery. Let's talk about you getting to sit down, of course, with Howie Roseman and head coach Nick Sirianni earlier this week. What sense did you get from both of them heading into this?
I mean, clearly having 11 draft picks is extremely important to the Eagles because it does provide them, as we've talked about, flexibility to move around. And so I really think the way it's going to play out here and kind of the sense I've gotten from talking to Howie and to Nick yesterday and then being around the building today, those first 6 or 7 picks, very crucial. If somebody slips out of there, as Howie has said, and there's somebody that's available 7, 8, 9, 10 that maybe the Eagles had rated more highly, then they have an opportunity to go up and get that player. But I also think they can move back. So I think that it's going to be a bit crazy in the top 10 picks. And I think the Eagles are feeling like, hey, we know that we made the move from 6 to 12. We know the value is a bit different. We still can get a quality player, as Fran has said, but they feel like they have the flexibility and the options to add across the board tonight. Because tonight and throughout the weekend, this team needs a lot at every corner of the roster.
And Dave, you talk about having those options. Take us a little bit behind the scenes here. When you talk to Howie, when you talk to Nick, what is the mindset for them as they go into this draft with the 12th overall pick? Do they sit there and say, hey, let's keep our fingers crossed. We have our eyes on one guy. What is the mindset going into this? So if you could just share that with the viewers.
Yeah, Fran, I think that people have to understand that if the Eagles had their heart set on one player in this draft, they would not have moved out of number 6, because obviously going from 6 to 12, you've got a lot more uncertainty in those picks. And again, I think there will be some movement. That's the sense that I get from the building, from people around the league as well. So, but yeah, they feel like they're going to get a quality player. They want to stick to their board. There are obvious needs on this football team. We all know that. And I think it's also important to understand that the sweet spot of this draft is said to be picks 35 to 50, 60, 70. So you could see the Eagles bounce out of 12 and pick up some additional selections in those sweet spot areas. So again, I'm sitting here going, I can't wait to see how it goes. We know the first 2 picks in the draft. After that, I think it's really a crapshoot for everyone in the league.
So, Dave, let's talk about the new head coach, Nick Sirianni, who you've now been able to speak with several times. This guy's energy and just sheer excitement for being here jumps off the screen. I think everyone wants to know, this is for real, right?
Oh, no doubt about it, Amy. I mean, he's a genuine guy. He's not a polished orator. He's not a snake oil salesman. He's Nick Sirianni, and he's got a lot of energy. He loves the game of football. He's a 39-year-old head coach who understands that he's got a lot to learn. And he's also got an understanding that he can win people over because he's just such a genuine, authentic, enthusiastic, energetic man who is very positive about things. And yeah, he's been great. Now, he's in the process right now of the virtual offseason program and teaching the X's and O's. And it really does help, as Fran said, to have Eric Wilson and Anthony Harris communicating Jonathan Gannon's defense to the rest of the team. And for Nick to really translate through Brian Johnson, the quarterback's coach, to Jalen Hurts and to Joe Flacco, what this Eagles offense is going to be about. But no doubt about it, Nick Sirianni is totally authentic. In a few minutes, I'm going to take him over to Lincoln Financial Field and introduce him to the crowd at the Eagles draft party. I'm excited to do that, and it'll be the first time that he will appear in front of Eagles fans. And I know that he is just jacked for this weekend.
Dave, I'm curious about what he thinks of Philly so far. I mean, this is not like being in L.A. with the Chargers or in Indy with the Colts. This is Philly. What does he think of the Eagles fans so far?
Well, Ross, it's always a bit of culture shock for those who come to Philadelphia because it's such a unique sports environment. It's intense. The Eagles mean a lot to the fans. People in this city love their sports, and Nick has been out and about the city, checked it out. He's gone to some Sixers games. He's sat in the stands. He feels what the crowd is feeling. I think it plays perfectly to his personality. He's an intense guy. He's a competitive guy. He demands a lot of himself, and he's going to hold people accountable. And I think that's exactly what Philadelphia Eagles fans are all about. And that's why I think it's going to be a very good marriage.
Well, and Dave, here I am thinking you brought out your Sunday best for us here on the show, but you're clearly about to go take the head coach and introduce him to the Eagles fans at the draft party, so I'm sure that'll be really fun. We'll be catching up with you throughout the weekend, and we'll catch up with you later tonight for a little bit more insight on as the process unfolds.
All right, guys, have a great one.
Awesome. All right, now it is time to hear from the head coach himself. Here is more from Nick Sirianni on his first draft as an NFL head coach.
It really shows you when you get to sit in at all the meetings, right? Because when you're a position coach or when you're a coordinator, you go in for your expertise, right? As an offensive coordinator, I went into the offensive meetings. As a quarterback coach, I went into the quarterback meetings. Well, now I get to sit in for all of them. What I see as the head coach of the collaboration, I think that's awesome, right? The collaboration of all the hard work that the scouts did, that the trainers did. And to think that you could do it by yourself, it's just impossible. Like the collaboration's awesome. It's the definition of being on a team.
And of course, you can catch that full interview on PhiladelphiaEagles.com along with our social channels and app. And be sure to check it out because there will be exclusive Eagles draft content coming to you all weekend. All right, we are going to take a quick break here on Eagles Draft Central. On the other side, we'll be breaking down some prospects you'll want to know heading into tonight's NFL Draft. Welcome back to Eagles Draft Central, presented by Dietz Watson. As we get closer to the start of the draft, prospects are closer to knowing their future homes, and we're going to break down several big names to know for tonight, starting on offense. But first, let's take a quick look at the class as a whole. Fran, what stands out to you about this offensive group?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's an offensive-heavy draft, and whenever that is the case, it's typically because of the quarterbacks. And there is a chance that 5 quarterbacks go in the top 10 picks in this class. And really, we know that quarterbacks are going to go 1, 2, 3. It's a matter of who is that quarterback at number 3. Who do the San Francisco 49ers take? Is it going to be Trey Lance, Justin Fields, or Mac Jones? And how that impacts the rest of the top 10, top 15, that's going to be fun to watch.
Well, let's hope that's the case, right? I mean, let's hope 5 quarterbacks go in the first 7, 8, or 9. That just makes even more of the position players, maybe like the corners, maybe the receivers, fall to the Eagles and makes the trade look even better, because if there's 5 quarterbacks that go, the Eagles are really getting, at worst, the 7th best position player.
Which is so fascinating. And of course, that's always how it is with quarterbacks. You're talking about value, you're talking about need. It's just a fascinating thing to watch. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of surprises tonight as well. All right, let's get started with some names for the people to know tonight. Ross, who is a guy on offense that you're super interested in?
Well, I know we'll talk about the receivers, but I'm going to start with the offensive line. We know that it's the most important position, and I know how to get ratings for PhiladelphiaEagles.com, okay? Northwestern offensive lineman Rashawn Slater. Absolutely love this dude. And there's a real chance that, depending on how the board shakes out, that he's the best player available when the Eagles pick at 12. He's played right tackle. He's played left tackle. A lot of people think his best position might be inside at guard. And when you look at his body type, 6'4", 305, kind of reminds you of guys like Brandon Sheriff in Washington, Zach Martin in Dallas. Those are 2 Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber right guards in the NFC East. You see all the accolades. It's well documented what he did against Chase Young. And you never know with the Eagles. They're getting a little bit older on the offensive line. You never know where and when they might need to plug in a guy like Slater.
I don't know why people wouldn't get fired up about that. Keeping your quarterback standing up is something very exciting. You got to get the ball to those playmakers if you're and you need a good offensive line play for that.
Yeah, no question. I think when you're looking at exciting players in this offensive draft, I think you're going to look at Kyle Pitts, the tight end from Florida. Now, unlikely to make it to the Eagles at number 12, right? I think he's one of the more unique players to come out of the college ranks at this position, maybe in football history. I mean, this guy is a true unicorn. Watch him against some of the best players in the conference, and he's able to win in a multitude of ways. I think when you look at his height, weight, speed profile at just 19 years old last year, doing what he did against the best of the best, he is truly outstanding. But really the big thing, the reason why I want to focus in on Kyle Pitts is, I mentioned it with the quarterbacks earlier. How early do they come off the board? How does that impact the rest of the draft? I think when you look at Kyle Pitts, does he go number 4 to Atlanta? If he doesn't, does he go to number 6 to Miami? Does that push a Jalen Waddle further down the board? Does that push a Patrick Surtain and Joe Horn and some of these other players down the board? I think that's the importance of focusing in on Kyle Pitts here in the first round.
Hold on a second. What are we doing here? Did you get a different format than I did? It said discuss an offensive player that the Eagles might draft that intrigues you. Kyle Pitts? I mean, I go Rashawn Slater and Eagles fans are like, okay. And then you go Kyle Pitts and get their hopes up. Kyle Pitts is not going to be there, okay, when the Eagles draft the 12. I don't even know why Fran brought his name up. He's awesome. He went to Archbishop Wood. He's from Philly. That would be amazing. It's not happening. Amy and I will talk about players that the Eagles might be drafting tonight. How about that?
I thought that if I brought in a Southeastern PA guy, a guy that played high school here locally, that you'd be excited. Now you're the one turning on me.
I'm excited. You're sitting between me, Ross, and another Gator. And look, if we're talking about, Fantasyland, you're saying he's a unicorn. So it all fits together perfectly. All right, I'm going to go maybe a little more realistic and pretty fun. I'm going to talk about Jalen Waddle, the receiver from Alabama. This is a guy who is going to make a quarterback very, very happy. He gives you so many options in an offense, can open up an offense. You're talking about speed. You're talking about electricity. So fast, so tough to tackle, like a cheat code on offense. This guy gets loose and he is gone. He can make guys miss. I mean, he just does so many things well. Drawn comparisons to, Eagles fans will love this, Deshaun Jackson and Tyreek Hill, who's one of the most electric players in the NFL. He's also fantastic on special teams, 19.3 yards per return career kick return average and 2 touchdowns. So many have said this year's wide receiver crop is better than last year. And Waddle could be the best in the class, Ross.
Well, listen, Waddle's amazing.
Yeah.
And there are people that think he's maybe the second best receiver in the draft. There are some mock drafts out there where he goes 6, 7, 8. So that would be great if the Eagles got Waddle. But there's another Alabama receiver who has the most production out of 4 top 15 picks over the last couple years, and that's Heisman Trophy winner Devontae Smith. He just had a season, the likes of which we have never seen by a college receiver. And what's really crazy about it, Amy, is after Waddle got hurt, he was still that dominant. He still could not be covered by him. I mean, look at these kids from Missouri trying to cover him. Good luck, dudes. And I've heard so much about how much he weighs. Who cares? That's what he's weighed the whole time.
I can't stand that.
That's what he's weighed the whole time. It works for him. Maybe I should have weighed less. I don't know. He's been unbelievable at 170 pounds. So why do we get – he's been so productive. I know a lot of Eagles fans are hoping that maybe Devontae Smith is there at 12. He would obviously be a home run. I mean, look at those numbers. Alabama's whole offense goes to the NFL every year, and he still put up those numbers.
Philly as a city, we are certainly familiar with undersized superstars. Maybe if you look across the street to the hardwood, guys, the Sixers wearing the number 3 jersey, they're used to guys with that stature.
I love that. And look, I can't stand the argument about his weight. Savvy route running wins in the NFL, and Devontae Smith is a savvy route runner. All right, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we will talk about the defensive prospects you need to know for tonight. Stay with us. Welcome back to Eagles Draft Central, presented by Dietz Watson. As we continue our discussion of prospects to know for tonight, we are now taking a look at the defense, where I am particularly excited. Ross, we'll start with you again. What prospect are you really excited about tonight?
I love South Carolina cornerback J.C. Horn. I just love guys that play the way he does, the intensity, the passion. He's got ideal size at 6'1", 205. They had him cover whoever the best player was for the other team, no matter who it was. Kyle Pitts, the tight end, receivers, inside, outside, it did not matter. And I'm going to throw a name out there. I know they play different positions, but when I watch J.C. Horn, his intensity, I get some serious Brian Dawkins vibes. I know Doc was a safety and Horn's a corner, but I feel like if the Eagles somehow take J.C. Horn tonight, he will become a fan favorite very early in his Eagles career.
Yeah, that competitiveness, that drips off the tape when you watch him. You can't help but feel that way when you come away from watching J.C. Horn play. He's a lot of fun to watch.
He, to me, is your classic Will Muschamp SEC corner with a lot of attitude. Sure. And obviously I know Muschamp not there anymore, but he recruited him. And so just totally classic, drips with all of that swagger, like you said. What about a player you're really interested in tonight on defense?
Yeah, we know Ross. I mean, Ross likes to go with the speed and the sexy guys on the perimeter.
He's
all the sizzle.
Guys.
I'm going to bring the steak. I'm going to talk about the guys in the trenches, the defensive line. I'm going to go to defensive end Kwity Paye from Michigan. This is a guy that I've been a fan of going back to the summer because he checks so many boxes. He's a high character kid. His backstory is outstanding. But going to the field, one of the things I love every single summer getting ready for the college football season is paying attention to Bruce Feldman's freak list, the top athletes in college football. The entire country, number 1 on that list this year, this past summer, Kwity Paye, he is a physical marvel. The way he could turn the corner, the way he can close from behind, he is so much fun to watch. He plays with a nonstop motor. He plays up and down the line of scrimmage. He can line up inside. He can line up outside. The guy just goes 100 miles an hour every single play. He's a lot of fun to watch on film. To me, one of my favorite defensive linemen in this class.
You know who he kind of reminds me of a little bit? Brandon Graham.
Yeah.
I mean, they both went to Michigan, similar body type, similar versatility. Brandon rushes inside sometimes as well. There's a comp there for them. And obviously, if you're an Eagles fan, you would take drafting a guy like Brandon Graham 10 times out of 10, just like Fletcher Cox when we talked about him earlier.
Well, and a leader who's been through a lot, and whether or not this player ends up in Philadelphia, I encourage everyone to look into his backstory. What he has been through and overcome is incredibly inspiring, and tonight is a big night for him and his family. All right, I am going to go back to the SEC, actually back to Alabama, which I didn't realize I did that when I picked my player, so shame on me for being a bad Gator. But I have to pick a player that I love, Patrick Surtain II. Of course, I was a huge fan of his dad growing up, 3-time Pro Bowler, playing for my hometown team, the Miami Dolphins, and I started covering Patrick Surtain II when he was in 8th grade. And you want to talk about a pro-ready prospect. There's only one thing he's ever wanted to do his entire life, and that is play cornerback in the NFL. And he has been playing corner his entire life. He's polished, he's a technician at the position, dependable, reads routes really well, just a guy who's going to be a plug-and-play starter from day one, and of course, a great legacy there with his dad. A lot of legacy guys in this cornerback class as well.
Yeah, a lot of names that people will find familiar, but to me too with Patrick Surtain is that he went in and started as a true freshman for Nick Saban in the secondary. That is not easy to do.
Especially as a DB
that is his
in Nick
focus.
Saban's
So
system.
to me, that's another thing that stands out about Surtain.
Well, I called the U.S. Army Bowl when Surtain was a senior in high school. He looked like he does now. I mean, he looked like a first-round NFL corner. I was like, yep, he's going to be a first-round NFL corner. And it's funny because in that same U.S. Army Bowl was Micah Parsons, the linebacker from Penn State, who's the best high school defensive player I've ever seen. You know, what people don't realize about Micah Parsons is he played the end in high school. So he's only been an off-the-ball linebacker at Penn State for 2 years. So there is so much still there that he can tap into. He's only been seeing those blocking schemes playing it. Look at all the plays he made in the last game he had, the Cotton Bowl against Memphis. A lot of people think he is the single best defensive player in this draft. And I know that it hasn't been the Eagles' style in recent years to take a linebacker high in the draft. But it's a new coaching staff. It's a new regime. You've got Jonathan Gannon, and he's had a lot of success with off-the-ball linebackers in Minnesota. You think of Kendricks and Barr in Indy with Darius Leonard. He knows the impact of a big-time player at the second level.
Just how awesome is it, though, that we got two of the freakiest athletes in this draft that come from this area, from southeastern PA. Kyle Pitts on offense and certainly Micah Parsons on defense.
Gotta love that. And Parsons was on the freak list, too,
yes,
I think, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there you go. So a lot of athleticism. I especially love that for defensive guys.
Yep.
All right, so, of course, a lot of exciting names here. Surely going to be a night full of drama and surprise as we see where they all end up as things unfold. We're going to take one more quick break, but first, Eagles fans, did you know that you can wake up to the latest Eagles news delivered straight to your Amazon Alexa or Google Home? It's pretty fantastic. So for more details, go to philadelphiaeagles.com/voice. Eagles Draft Central presented by Dietz Watson, proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, and coming up tonight on Eagles Draft Central, we will be live immediately after the Eagles pick, which of course, as of right now, is pick number 12, but anything can happen. We'll be right back here with instant analysis and reaction from our team, and stick around later on the website, app, and social channels for the end of the night press conferences live as well. And of course, Eagles insider Dave Spadaro will be joining us throughout the weekend as well. So much content. And Fran, you also have your Journey to the Draft podcast. What can fans look forward to from that?
Yeah, I mean, we will be breaking it down every single pick the Eagles make. Basically, what you can do is go find the Journey to the Draft podcast wherever podcasts can be found. So myself, Ben Fennell, Dane Brugler, we're going to be breaking down every single pick each night so that next morning on your phone, you just go to the Journey to the Draft podcast while you're going for your walk, you're going for a drive, you're washing the dishes, you're doing the laundry. Just join us. We'll break down every single pick every single morning.
So basically, none of us are sleeping this weekend,
That's right.
and we hope the same for you if you're consuming everything, which you should be because this is the greatest weekend of the year. We've got even more fun stuff for the fans on the Eagles app. You can test your draft knowledge with Eagles Draft Trivia from our friends at NovaCare Rehabilitation. Ross, I feel like you would probably be excellent at Eagles Draft Trivia.
Well, I mean, it depends on the era. I mean, if we're talking mid-'80s to mid-'90s, forget it. It's over. You got no shot. I guarantee I will win that. Now, then once I got to play college ball and I was playing for other teams in the NFL, you might have me in the 2000s. But mid-'80s to mid-'90s, I will dominate any of you, I promise.
Ross Tucker throwing down the gauntlet, everybody. So be sure you're playing at home. And also, we'll be adding new questions about the newest Eagles as well. So we'll see what era that falls into for Ross. But now what we've really been looking forward to all day, we want to give a shout out to Linden Italian Market for bringing us some fantastic meats and cheeses to keep us delightfully snacking during the draft. They've been serving only Dietz Watson since they opened more than 20 years ago. Fran and Ross, I think we're totally spoiled. And we're so lucky. Another year and some more meats and cheeses for us. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I mean, if you follow me on social media, and you all should, at Ross Tucker NFL, this is like what I do. This is what I get excited about. Food, meats and cheeses. I love Dietz and Watson. They told me about it 4 hours ago. As soon as we're done doing this, before the draft, I'm running right over there, and I'm eating all of it. I can't wait.
Yeah, meats, cheeses, and like 1980s Eagles football. That's what Ross checks all the boxes there. For me, I'm excited because this is like it kind of brings home here because all throughout the pandemic, I've been getting into the charcuterie, so like the meats and cheeses, getting some cheese boards. So I'm excited for that as well after this show's done.
Charcuterie. Yeah, we're gonna wrap this show up so we can go check out all of the gifts from Dietz and Watson and Linden Italian Market. Make sure on game day or any other day you always go with Dietz and Watson, real Philly deli. All right, that is our show. We are rapidly approaching the start of the NFL draft. I am not sure I can contain my excitement. For Fran and Ross, I am Amy Campbell. We will see you as soon as the Eagles make their pick.